folks, and welcome back to NTI's Japan Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Ziv Nakajima again, and this podcast is brought to you, among others, by Native Shark, which is an online platform for learning Japanese. And what Native Shark do is they make learning Japanese really, really simple. You log in, you click a button that says Study Now, and the platform then shows you exactly what you need to learn next based on your previous progress. Now, again, this is simple, but the way it's designed means that students who use Native Shark once a day for 4 to 5 months can complete the equivalent of over 2 years of university study. And this is not just them patting themselves on the back. Now that Native Shark's been in business for over a year, the results are in. So this is exactly what people are saying. Just looking at a couple of posts in their community forums. And the student community, by the way, is one of the best things about the platform. So one person's writing, most productive year I've had learning Japanese. And then another one says, I've started learning over a year ago with all of these other platforms, and what I learned there is only a fraction of what I've learned on Native Shark in just 3 months. And then yet another one goes, in my mind, my study timeline only started with Native Shark because that's when I really started learning consistently, and on and on. So yet the proof's in the pudding. It's definitely the best online course out there. And since you've heard about it here on the podcast, you also get an extra little bonus. If you sign up for their free trial using the URL nativeshark.com/NTI, and we'll link to it in this episode's show notes. So that's native without an E, so NATIV shark, all one word, .com/NTI. You use that link to sign up and you'll get a double length free trial. So 2 weeks free instead of just the one. No need to put in your credit card or anything of that sort. You can just sign up, give it a shot, and chances are at the end of these 2 weeks, you'll already be far ahead of wherever you are with your Japanese at the moment, whether you're just starting out or you're already in knee deep. Give it a shot. nativeshark.com/NTI. Okay, so for today's episode, we're back with your favorite talking heads, the Japan Real Estate Experts Panel, or as I like to call us, JREP. Apologies to Matt, he doesn't like acronyms, but this one just kind of rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? And in this week's conversation, we dig into the ins and outs of professional representation in the property market. So from buyer's agents to realtors, property managers, short-term stay operators, property lawyers or judicial scriveners, renovation professionals, and much, much more. How it all works, why it all needs to be paid for, or in some cases, why you'd be much better off paying for these services. And we also touch on the purchase process a bit, how that all works in Japan, why sometimes transactions are conducted in cash. And I personally had a tough time wrapping my head around that one. Common myths, misconceptions, things that first-time buyers often tend to think or say, which may not be completely accurate. And again, much, much more. So a really fun conversation. And if you'd like to actually see us as we speak, we'll also link to the YouTube channel. Highly recommended. We're all extremely attractive, especially Emil. So yeah, good conversation. Hope you'll enjoy it. But before we get right into it, quick heads up on a topic that's completely unrelated to this podcast. So personal confession, these last couple of years, being stuck at home most of the time with the pandemic and all, we got very seriously into board games and card games, or at least my son and I did, and so did quite a few of our friends and acquaintances. And speaking to a bunch of them, we've come to realize that a lot of people that we know who are also into board games are, surprisingly enough, also into business and investment. Now, there are obvious parallels there, strategic thinking, resource management, conflict resolution, and so on and so forth. So realizing that, we've decided to throw together a little weekend event that'll mix our two passions, so business networking and gaming. And we're going to hold the first one this coming December in a trendy Fukuoka City hotel. We're hoping to have lots of people from all over Japan turn up. We've just opened registration, so we'll link to the booking page in this episode's show notes. If you've got any sort of interest in business and or gaming, and you don't have to be deeply into either, just a passing interest will do, we hope you'll come and join us at the Hotel Montan in Hakata, 10 to 12 December 2021. That's Friday through to Sunday. We're going to have business speakers, game industry speakers. Hopefully they're an elusive bunch. And plenty of free time for networking, business discussions, just to get to know each other. And of course, plenty of gaming as well. So full room and board, super affordable, tons of fun guaranteed. All right, that's it. Pitch over. And now let's get into the Japan Real Estate Experts Panel weekly chat. Enjoy, and I'll see you again on the other side.
Repeat that.
Go ahead, Emil. You were saying about your vibrating device.
It's going to be off the cuff. It's going to be off the cuff.
Just barely.
Vibrating electrical stuff. Yes. I'm all for sports massage.
All right, so let me also record the audio just in case. Give me a second. Cool. So what are we talking about today?
Real estate.
That's right. That's what we're here. Okay.
Let's avoid vaccinations and potential policies on how the government's going to handle it.
We can regurgitate some of the last couple of sessions because if anyone is watching this replay, then we've actually done a number of these and just been talking to ourselves because we've thought they've been recorded and they're not. So
I wonder who stuffed that one up.
Not me.
Not me. Nobody. So yeah. But we can talk about all the things we were talking about. There was a really interesting conversation that I saw online this week, Matt, about some chap who was looking at getting an Akia, but there was a person who was a Fudorsan or a company that was sort of doing the brokering for him.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously trying to put themselves in the middle for a fee, putting themselves in the middle for we'll help you, but you've basically got to use our renovation services.
Right.
So what is that sort of thing typical when people are going out looking for Akia?
It's not uncommon.
How does that differ from what you do?
It's not uncommon at all. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the case, but that's the sort of predatory practices that, honestly, granted, like we're middle people too, right? So it's not like I don't recognize the subtle irony.
But you don't force people to use you for renovations, right?
Yeah, they can if they want, right? But I mean, honestly, and I've said this before, and I feel like it's sort of hard to convince people I'm being truthful. But I mean, yeah, we want to make a little bit of money off this, but really, this was started as a passion project, and a big part of what we want to do is just see these things move, right? And so, if we have resources that we can provide our clients with, of course, we're open to doing that. We don't want to lock anybody into anything. That being said, again, going back to what Tracy was talking about with we'll help you, but you got to do this as well, sort of practice. That is common. It's a pain in the ass. I'd almost guarantee that it's not going to be quality at all. I mean, it's going to be cookie cutter, spackle board or particle board and spackle and just kind of, typical modern sort of like food or Muji style kind of renovations. It's an unfortunate truth, and that's like with IKEA or anything else. I mean, the post-purchase whatevers can be a minefield, regardless of kind of the price of the property. And that's something that just anybody needs some help navigating, especially if it's their first time. Double, especially if it's an Akia thing. I mean, that can definitely get like very weird very quickly. And so just having the resources and having somebody on your side in the ring with you, as kind of Ziv, you would call it, like buyer's representation, basically. Having somebody that can sort of run defense for you, understands what the hell is going on. Hey, we've got our legal department over here, so don't fuck with us, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's the best way to go about it. That being said, there are fees associated with it, right? And so what that poster was experiencing, on one hand, I don't like seeing it because, I mean, as myself and, just buying anything, right? Let's do it quick. Let's make this transaction totally, mutually beneficial and stop lying to me and all of these things. On the other hand, I do think it is valuable for at least in the current kind of environment, for these situations to pop up every once in a while, just kind of as a general learning experience for anybody who's interested in the territory, because kind of selfishly, at the end of the day, that makes our job a whole lot easier. That reduces sales time. It's like, okay, here's what we offer. Here's how much it costs. You know what the hassles are. You don't want to do it? Great. Come to us. We'll get it done. If you don't want that, that's fine, but it's going to be a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you should ever apologize for being the buyer's advocate. I think that is a skill set that a lot of people don't have, and you're actually offering a valuable service. So there's no need to apologize for actually charging for that, and it's really up to the buyer themselves. Like, how much do they want? How much do they want the property, and how much is their time worth compared to paying someone like you? And their time is worth money, and so is yours. So I don't think you should ever apologize for that. And I think
I agree.
Very transparent about it.
I agree with you in principle. But another thing, and I've said this many times before too, a big part of our job is not just the brokerage and stuff, it's sort of the narrative, like wrangling narratives and kind of education and things like that. And so while I agree with you in principle, one thing that we run into a lot is that simply because buyer's representation and advocacy is not very standard practice at all in the Japanese real estate market and other markets as well. And there's a very kind of concretely and ingrained and very narrow kind of conception of what a real estate transaction looks like and who the players are and time frames and all of this stuff. So that often, not too often, but often enough for me to notice, there are sort of visceral gut reactions to us or other players coming in and saying, hey, we can do the representation thing, it costs you extra. And then people come back and they say, well, that's not the standard practice. So like, get out of here, you predatory, why do I need you? And it's a strangely strong, sometimes like, okay, hey, like, we're not forcing anything. And I understand that you kind of maybe don't understand. And if you want to hear more, we can talk. If you don't, that's cool too. But there is a strangely, like strongly held, almost like belief or ideology behind how real estate purchases go. And if you veer outside of that in any way, it throws people for a loop.
Yeah. Is that there are people that are wanting to buy places and they're not local? Or I'm just curious about who those people are. It's like these are Japanese people who are saying this, or
well, both actually. I had ultimately, it was a really good experience, but down in Izu, I was speaking with actually somebody trying to sell their property. We were kind of going through our sellers services, which just like our buyers services are non-standard practices, right? And there are monthly fees and things associated, and photography and cleaning and this, that, and as I'm sure you're very familiar with, right? And we maybe got like a minute into the conversation about associated fees and what the services are. And they were just like, oh my God, that's insane. Why would I ever do that? And the conversation, I was like, okay, this isn't going anywhere.
Oh, don't.
But you don't want,
if you want to wait 3 years to sell your thing and, just every year the price goes down a little bit and nothing ever moves. Like, okay, that's your prerogative. But like, if you want to get it sold in like 3 months, then yeah, pay us more and we can just get it out.
I kind of feel the clients that are like that are maybe the ones
that you don't want.
I don't try to sell anything to someone who doesn't want the property. My clients sort of want the service and are looking for it. So I've got quite a few people that I speak to that mention, and every time they do mention something or something rural, I always say, oh, you know what? Like we started this sort of thing on Clubhouse, and now it's YouTube, and we discuss every week. This guy Matt, he basically does this Akia service for a few 100,000 yen up to whatever, depends on how much you search, but that's a fee, because the clients that I'm talking to, I know that they're like, I'm excited that I can get a service for between $5,000 to $10,000, or those I think whatever those figures may be, that will find the right place for me. So, and that's actually like the sales point. Like, to when I talk to people, you can actually get this done because for only this kind of fee, right? As opposed to the ones that are trying to get the cheapest option and the cheapest fees. They're not my client. They're not the people like I want to send you. It's the one like, oh, you can get this done. And it's only this much. It's a fee, but that's what you pay him, and that's his job. And that's why even when I met you, I was excited by that option. Thinking, oh, you know what? If I'm never ready for it, I don't want to do this. I don't have time. I got a full-time job and I got kids, and I'm probably not going to do as cost-effective a job as someone who is a professional at it. I think I'm going to get more value from the service they provide, my net financial figure, than if I were to try to do it myself.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly that's a very good description of kind of our stage one service. But the other thing you brought up too is the cheapness of stuff too. Is there another problem? And this goes back to all of the articles that have been coming out for a long time now. Is they do a very good job of really not talking much about additional costs.
Yeah.
Like, hey, it's $500. Let's do this, right? And for whatever reason, I guess, people sort of kind of understandably, although if you keep doing it, then it's a little weird. But, at least the first time you read this, you get like, holy shit, I can get $500. That's amazing. And they probably daydream for a few hours and like they build their whole fantasy life and stuff around. And then they hear, oh yeah, but there's like an additional $15,000 to $25,000 involved. Then they're like, well, geez, guys, what happened to $500? I'm like, are you serious? If you're still complaining about $30,000 all told for a house and property that you own and are not renting, like maybe the price here is not the Akia is not the problem. Like you're just like exceedingly cheap.
Also, the ones that don't have that cash to put towards the project, maybe that's like now's not the time for you to buy a place. That if you can't afford those extra $10,000 to $20,000 of fees, you probably can't afford to maintain or prepare this kind of property. But it's important to know that because, okay, now this is your strategy. In order to get it, this is the kind of costs involved and this is the timeline. Often when I have, calls with my clients, we say, okay, look, you're going to need anywhere from 5 to 25% in closing costs. It is possible to get all those closing costs wrapped up in the loan if you're, permanently employed, you've been employed at the same company, it's a large company for some time. Generally, though, people that are eligible for the 105% loans don't need 105%.
Oh yeah, we have the same situation. Like, you make how much a year, and you're buying a $30,000 house?
Yeah, precisely. It's the ones that and the banks know this. So sometimes we have conversations with the bank saying, okay, they want to buy a 18 million yen property, like $800,000 property, and they want the bank to finance it plus do the closing costs. Why is someone who's earning, $120,000 a year, 12 million yen a year, why can't they, the bank will ask, why can't they afford to put the closing costs down? Why can't they afford 4 million yen, like 3 months worth of salary, 4 months worth of salary? Why can't they afford to put that down? Are they that bad financially? Are they that financially, incompetent that they cannot save even, a few months worth of salary for a house purchase? And if we say, they just have no cash, the bank's not comfortable giving them 105%. But often the story rather is, well, they have savings. It's all in stock market or foreign assets or domestic assets, whatnot. But they understand that interest rates are so low, it's financially more beneficial to get it in the loan with a low interest rate than to sell or even just transfer funds from overseas. You lose percentage. So that changes the client to not having no money, but rather they're quite financially savvy and know the best use of their money. And then the bank is more confident with someone like that because they know, okay, this person does have funds. And they may ask, well, can we see their proof of savings at least? So either just bank statements, bank statements, or they're off their, I had people like they got, for example, E-Trade, America, E-Trade in the US account. They just want to see a statement saying their financial position. So, okay, this person has money, so we're more comfortable loaning money to someone who's got money.
Yeah.
Right? The 105%, especially when we're talking about those kind of prices.
I did that when I bought my house, Emil. I showed my complete global financial footprint. So that was my, my savings that I put in offshore, and because I don't believe that Ninkin's going to support me. So I have my own. And I, I gave them my whole, like my savings that I've got in Australia, the whole thing. And I think that went a long way because I'm not in that category of working in a nice big fancy company that has that the banks love to lend to. I'm self-employed, and it was for me, even to get the loan that I got was quite, it took somebody that was prepared to look at things a little bit differently. Yeah, I had to pay. Didn't get those rates that you can get with for people that are working at big traditional companies, but I was still able to get a home loan in Japan that I wouldn't have got normally. But yeah, I was just like, I'm not a woman of mystery. Here is my complete picture, and I just gave it to the bank, and they let me borrow. So now the trick is to refinance that so that I do get a better rate, because I've been I've had the loan now for a number of years. So I'll talk to you and you can help me out.
Yeah, we have kind of spoken on that a little bit. But what I do recommend with the banks that do sort of do a bit more flexible with the client that they have, the non-traditional, like, they're maybe self-employed, have their own business, etc. Those the banks like that, they do give a higher interest rate, but you call them once a year and say, you know what, it's a bit ridiculous. Can you get 0.5% or 1% off? And do that. With your particular bank that you use, you can do that. With the regular Japanese ones, no, so other people don't really bother trying it. But Tracy, for you, it's worth doing that.
I'll need someone to advocate for me, because I don't think my language is up to scratch, and also I just don't have your good looks and charm, Emil.
Yes, some people are blessed. I'm sorry.
Emil's just got that thing. We don't, because most of our customers are cash buyers, we don't deal with banks and stuff, but I can't say that we've ever heard too many complaints about people having to pay buyer's agency fees, but I guess a lot of that is because most of them, by the time they start talking to us, they've already tried to do things on their own. So they've emailed a few agents, they've looked at a few listings, and then they contact us saying, well, look, the agent just returned one email, sometimes not even that, and now they're not talking anymore because I asked them a question, and looks like nobody ever asked them a question, let alone in English. And I guess you don't get that as much in Tokyo and Osaka and so forth. But and by the time they reach us, they're just happy that there's somebody who can actually bridge that gap for them. So that's never been an issue. Plus the amount in your case too, Matt, especially in your case, I think the amount of, like, the potential to make costly mistakes when you're buying in a foreign land, in a foreign environment, in a foreign language, and without knowing anything about the local market is ridiculous. There's a guy called Michael. He has a newsletter called Cheap Houses Japan.
I've spoken with him. Yeah,
highly recommended too. Actually, he's got a very nice Instagram account as well.
His business model isn't exactly up to snuff, if we're being honest.
His business model is making money off the internet. He makes money on advertising and banners and so forth. He's not making money on real estate.
Right.
But
are you throwing shade there, Matt?
A little bit. Well, he's basically privatized and then monetized publicly accessible imagery, and my understanding is, anyway, and listings, right?
Everyone's got to make a buck somehow.
Yeah. But I've spoken with him.
Yeah. If he's consolidating, I have no idea. I've never seen this person, never even heard of that site or that letter that you mentioned it. But yeah, if someone's consolidating a whole bunch of information and putting it together, like, that there's value in that. Like, I pay for some courses and classes that you could possibly just find from YouTube, but I don't have the time to consolidate all that.
Yeah, right.
That there's certain speaker that you like, and you can watch all their stuff for free, or they have a $20, $50, or $80 download.
Well, that's a cool thing about what he does as well. And honestly, this is a theme that I see everywhere, not just real estate. Of basically, there's like very close to actually inaccessible oases of a specific type of information, but if you can't get into it, then you don't even know it's there. And so the consolidation and sort of, let's use some radical terms like the liberation of information regarding real estate, or this is also what I do in with independent music as well. It's the same problem. It's a very valuable service, and not even service, just like it's a thing that needs to be done, because I personally think that that's something that's holding a lot of opportunity in Japan kind of back, is that it's simply difficult to access, right? And so
same story though with his newsletter. I mean, yes, you could skirt the internet in Japanese and find all of these listings on your own, but the fact that somebody puts it all together for you. So anyway, what I was going to say is that he's actually purchased his own house a few years ago, and he's got a house here in Japan, and it's all said and done. But when he spoke to us, he's like, "Oh, I wish I knew that you could actually have a buyer's agent in Japan, and because the amount of hassle and the amount of hoops that you have to jump through as a foreigner purchasing here, especially if you're a remote foreigner, you don't even live here, is and in many cases it's insurmountable, again, unless you're buying out of Tokyo and Osaka."
We get a number of inquiries. In fact, I'm working with somebody, one of our clients right now. There's a lot, and honestly, I'm American, so I'll throw legit shade. It's a lot of Americans don't research anything and are like, "Oh my God, I don't live there, but can I buy it? Let's do it." It's like, okay, you don't understand what's going on here.
Well, when we were doing the clubhouse rooms, there were so many Americans going, "Yeah, I'm a realtor in whichever state, or I invest in this state. I'm keen on buying a property in Japan. Can I just buy one in Japan?" But I do admire their enthusiasm.
Well, you can do it much like Michael did, right? It's totally legal, doable, and stuff, but there's costs, considerable, or can be considerable costs associated with it.
Yeah.
And with the mistakes that you might make along the way.
Exactly.
I do feel the nature of clientele, though, are quite different between the two of you guys. So people looking to use Zib services, they are investors. They're looking at growing wealth, and they're looking at purchasing a good asset that's going to be a good investment. So they're trying to grow their wealth, and they're looking for a service that can help them purchase a property. Whereas I feel with the Akia, some of those people that are not happy with the fact that there's these other costs involved, but they can't get it for just $500, they're not investors. They are looking to get the cheapest thing possible. They're excited.
Bargain hunters,
because, they're looking for the bargain. They're looking for the cheap entry. So any additional cost is, hold on a second, that's not part of my plan. Whereas I think an investor is like, yes, these are part of the costs involved in investing in this product. Or overall, I'm going to be in a better financial position by using the service. Someone like Ziv. So I think the type of clientele you have are going to be possibly a little bit different. But of course, there are the ones, like I said earlier, Matt, the people I talk to that once they say they're looking for a place in rural Japan, I'm like, oh yeah, speak to. And these are people that generally already own a house in Tokyo, right? So they've already got a place.
Yeah, that's our clientele is actually our clientele is quite top tier, actually. Lots of C-suite, lots of Fortune 500 and stuff like that. Yeah. Surprisingly,
the ones that end up hiring you, you mean, not everyone who contacts you.
Yeah, the ones that actually give us money, they're not averse to, and that's kind of the thing too with this project. You can consider it kind of a project, right? They've done it before, Australia, the US, UK, also in Japan as well. So they're familiar with, what that actually what they're getting themselves involved in. They also just, for one reason or another, understand that, yes, okay, that's the price of the house. There's almost certainly other costs associated with it. Let's find out and see how much that is. And I've got the money to do it. So, they can do it. The tire kickers, right, are just, they're the $500, give me $500 or bust kind of approach, which, it is insane a bit to me that, we're talking about real estate. Even if it's cheap, it's not cheap. Did you actually get duped by a story?
Yeah,
quality $500 houses? Are you kidding me?
I'm gonna give a bit of, just a bit of empathy to. We're in the business, right? We're used to it. We've gotten that.
Yes.
Our very first purchase or the very first foray into real estate, we were asking these same questions. That's why we get these questions. Like, yeah, bang on. We know the answer right away because we've answered it a million times. But also, if we think back, we've actually asked probably the same questions at very, very early days. Like, hold on, $500 houses or $1,000 house. Let me look into this, right? Because it looks like a good deal. So I'm keen in it. How percent, all purchase fees. Oh, hold on, 0.5% interest rate for home loans. That looks like a good deal. Like, what is it? And fortunately in Japan, then that is real. That is a real situation. Yeah. But you have to meet some conditions, like have a job.
Purchase and sale, and for Japanese too. Like we bought a property. I mean, not us, on behalf of a client. We bought a property from a Japanese couple. And they've inherited the property. So it was an investment property. It was tenanted and everything. They inherited from her dad or his dad, I don't know, whoever. And then they, for whatever reason, they ended up selling it. And they insisted on coming in person to the settlement meeting. They insisted on being paid in cash, which is the first time for us, like bring a suitcase of cash with you. And as soon as we put the cash on the table, the wife just like jumped on it and started counting it in front of the realtor. Obviously, this is a person who's never done a purchase or a sale before, but it was just so funny to watch. Now, we're going to interrupt this broadcast. I always wanted to say that. We're going to interrupt this broadcast to give you a quick reminder that NTI is now partnered with Mita Securities Hospitality Property Fund, and they're offering their mind-blowingly gorgeous Machiya townhouses in Kyoto. So there's 4 of them, each about 100 years or older, lovingly restored and renovated to modern standards luxury. Stunning architecture and comfort, all the modern conveniences, including your scenic indoor or outdoor bath, spectacular dining and sitting rooms, disgustingly decadent Japanese or Western style bedrooms, high-speed Wi-Fi internet, kitchen, outdoor decks, Japanese gardens, the works. Now, each of these homes can comfortably host 2 or 3 families, including kids. So anywhere from 1 or 2 guests and all the way up to a dozen or so. And you can rent the entire house to yourself. So no other guests. It's all yours. Run around naked all day and night long if that's your thing. Supreme Japanese style luxury accommodation. And since at the moment there are still no foreign tourists in Kyoto, these places are available for rent at ridiculously low prices. So we're talking as little as $430 for a whole week. That's right, luxury accommodation for an entire clan, 2 families or more, for as little as $400, $500, or $600 a week. Obviously, the longer the stay, the cheaper the rate is, but you can rent these for anywhere between 1 or 2 nights and up to a month or more. So perfect for a weekend getaway, extended holiday, workation, family reunion, company retreat, or even as a gift to a valued client, whatever you might have in mind. And if you book these through our website, you're also going to get an added bonus of 1 or more 3,000 yen, so that's $30 QUO cards, QUO. Those are gift cards that you can use all around the country in convenience stores, restaurants, various stores, lifestyle shops, you name it. The number of cards you'll get depends on the length of the stay, but you'll always get at least 1 of these. So if you're in Japan, or even if you're out of Japan, but you think that you might be able to get in sometimes in the next year or 2, and you've been thinking about spending some time in Kyoto, this is your chance to nab the best accommodation deal possible. So we'll link to the bookings page, which also has some amazing photo galleries for each of these properties on offer. Now, they all come with a fully equipped kitchen, but you can also choose to have your meals delivered to the property if that's your thing. The operator can arrange that for you at very reasonable prices. And if you can't see the show notes for any reason, just go to our website, nippontradings.com. That's NIPPON Tradings with an S, all one word, nippontradings.com/Kyoto-holiday-rentals. Or just go to nippontradings.com and you'll see the Kyoto Holiday Rentals option on the top right menu bar. Now, we are already taking bookings, so some of the properties may not be available on your dates. But Mita Security guys are super accommodating, and they'll do their best to find you an available property for whenever it is you're planning your trip. Get on there, book your inquiry, and take that dream holiday in Kyoto that you've been fantasizing about. while these phenomenal prices are still available. And now back to the podcast.
That actually brings up another interesting point that surprises some people during closing, is that there's no arbitrage, at least for the type.
No escrow, right? Yeah.
Or escrow, yeah, sorry. Which, again, kind of as Emil was pointing out, like I've been aware of this for a while now, so it's not as just like anvil on the head surprising when you first find out. But like when clients are like, wait a minute, seriously? It's a very kind of hair-raising it can be sort of a hair-raising experience. I mean, granted, Japan has, a lot of things going for it, trust being one of them. So if you just trust in it, then, but that's like, no trust systems are far better than trusting systems in my own opinion, right? So the whole lack of escrow is super odd. And I don't think I knew that until I myself started digging into real estate. Like, I don't ever see it sort of reported on or mentioned in articles or anything. Has anybody else here?
Can you just explain that? Like, so no, because it's a norm, they don't explain it, but just explain to the listeners what you mean by what, like when they don't have escrow, how it actually works.
So if you're spending a bunch of money, what you probably don't want to do is just say, hey, here's a bunch of money, please give the thing that you promised you'd give me after I give you the money, because you have no guarantee that, for the $50,000 or whatever, you're actually going to receive the thing. And so with escrow, it's just it's a middle party, right? That kind of mediates the transaction. So they're the holder of the cash, and in the case of real estate, the holders of the
cash received, title deed received. Okay, on you go.
Yeah. Right. And that's a great system for large purchases.
Yeah.
And the way that it at least works with us, it's literally, okay, money transfer, press the button, money transferred to XYZ bank account, ring, you get a phone call. Oh, hey, it's XYZ bank account. You did receive the money? Okay, great. Transaction complete.
Yeah.
There's
a form of security there in the middle in the form of the shihoshoshi, because the judicial scrivener, or the property lawyer as they're known in other countries, they actually should, in ideal situations, be getting the title deed a few days before the settlement.
Yes, and so we have a team of shihoshoshi that we work with.
So they wouldn't be releasing it or conducting the ownership transfer before they've confirmed that money's changed hands, right?
Precisely. Yeah.
So I think Tracy wants to speak. So I'll explain how that the lack of escrow or that transfer ownership works, and with the scrivener, the shihoshoshi, how that works in a second with the home loans for like $1 million, etc. But I think Tracy was going to jump on and say something.
I was just going to jump on to say that here in Japan, though, that you don't have all of the sort of hard property liens and those things that you do have in other countries, that you do need to do a bit more due diligence on. So, you might be buying a property in the US, and it's got a ton of like outstanding debt on it that doesn't immediately show up. So that's what the escrow is there for.
Well, no, but they still take care of that here. If there is a mortgage on the property, for example, then the property lawyer, the shihoshoshi, does need to go to the bank and make sure that the amount is paid off before they can conduct their business, right?
Yeah. There's not those hard property loans that you do have in other countries. So it's certainly an interesting situation. So jump in, Emil.
Yeah, so I'll just explain to the listeners how it sort of works, and I'll explain with home loans, because I do typical family homes in Tokyo. So what happens is, when you purchase the property, when you first sign the contract of sale. So what happens is, you sign a contract of sale and you pay a deposit, a down payment, anywhere like up to about 5% is the industry norm. So you pay 5% deposit to the seller, and you sign a contract, and that contract basically locks in the deal. And if you want to cancel the sale after you pay the deposit, you have to forfeit the deposit.
Hang on, pause. So, it's always been 10% for us. I've never heard this 5% of which you speak.
We usually do 5%, but possibly our properties are like, it doesn't have to be that price. You can actually negotiate. But the reason, perhaps your sales are, I don't know if they're larger price. Ours, like, we're talking sort of, say $80,000,000, $800,000. right? So 10%, $80,000. People often don't have that much cash.
Yeah.
They want to put into it. So 10% is quite a significant amount of cash.
Right.
So 5%, sometimes if it's a new development, we can even negotiate like yen 1 million. So less, but the reason though, if once the contract is signed, it actually says in the contract, in order to cancel, like either party is able to cancel the contract by forfeiting the deposit, or if it's the seller who wants to cancel, he must return the deposit and pay double that amount, pay that amount again. Okay. So if you have only a $1,000 deposit, 100,000 yen deposit, it's not a very secure contract because the buyer can just say, look, I found another property that is better. So they're willing to lose that $1,000, 100,000 yen. And the seller as well, maybe they get a better offer from another party. Or in another situation, let's say, the seller's got an apartment in Azabu and their daughter is finishing university in the US and wants to come back to Tokyo and wants the place to live in. And the seller says, oh, you know what? I'm not going to sell it anymore. My daughter's coming back. So that penalty, if as a buyer, you only put 100,000 yen as a deposit, I wouldn't feel too confident. The seller can easily just say, okay, well, in order to cancel this contract, I'm just going to pay you an extra, I'm going to refund your deposit and give you another 100,000 yen back. 100,000 yen is not important, not a big deal. When it's 5%, when it's 3 million yen, 4 million yen, like $30,000 or $40,000, that's more of a significant cancellation fee. So that's why it feels a bit more protected. So they say 5%, but you can kind of negotiate that, but usually not under 1 million yen, right? So $10,000.
I think also the 10% might be there for cash buyers, not for people buying with a loan, in which case they want to see a bigger amount. Yeah.
Okay, possibly. Yeah, we haven't really had that. But again, I think that usually the properties we're doing at, even then, that the deposit is generally between 1 and 5 million yen.
Yeah.
Right. And then what happened? But that, like, if it's $1 million property and they're putting 5 million yen in at the contract date, they put 5 million yen down payment. That's actually done in cash. You're talking about cash. They literally bring 5 million yen to our office, and we have one of those counting machines like you see in the casino movies and whatnot. Right in there.
Oh, you don't do furikomi for like a bank transfer for that?
No, to the seller, no. So some clients don't want to, like, we'll meet at our office in Ibis, and some clients don't want to. Sometimes the buyer feels uncomfortable bringing a few million yen in cash on the train, which is fine.
But
so
why cash though? I don't get why not just a bank?
Yeah, this is good stuff.
Go back. So now it's overwritten.
You just got the suitcase of cash.
Okay. Yeah, but so what happens is they will actually transfer the cash to, if the buyer doesn't feel comfortable bringing that much cash with them, then they can transfer it to our agency's account, and we'll actually go to the bank the morning of the contract and we'll withdraw it and bring it down to the office, and then hand it to the buyer. And then during the contract, the buyer will actually hand over the 5 million yen across the table. Now we have the plastic shield that go around.
Hand it to the seller. Why do you do that? Why doesn't it always?
Just like the sound of the money counter.
Well, we talk about the escrow thing. So that it's all done at the same time, right? So if you transfer that money to the seller in advance, what if he doesn't come to the signing?
Well, we do it on a screen. Like we show them that there's the transfer. We just like you do with PayPay. Here's the amount. Here's the thing. Like. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No. But some people don't like. Sometimes bank accounts can't transfer that much. I don't know how much your deposits are, but 5 million yen. A lot of people will have a restriction on their accounts. But right. I don't know why. But generally, that's what we do.
You do cash.
Always. Yeah, it's cash for the deposit.
And it's exciting.
There's no escrow for that. Like so. But yeah, anyway, the contract is in place.
But the guy has a picture of you on Instagram with like a suitcase full of cash or something like that. No.
Oh well, but people.
I was thinking, man, this is just like constantly have a camera running on the money counter, like TikTok or something.
People do like. People
when I bought my house, it was the last day of the year, the last day of the banking year, and I needed to have the contract signed by a particular date and have the money in. So I was actually in Yokohama. I went to my bank, took out 3 or something million yen worth of cash and had it in my handbag, and then caught the train from Yokohama back to Japan. And the lady in the bank was just like, "Oh, love, are you gonna be okay with all this money?" And I went, "Yep, no worries."
Do it.
No, hang on. Everybody slow down a minute. I don't, okay. Let me tell you how it works with us, and then please let me know what I'm not getting here, okay? So we would normally, once we agreed for the purchase, the seller would receive a copy of the contract, they would sign it, and then it would come to us, and then we would sign it, and on the same day transfer electronically the deposit amount either to the seller directly or to the realtor, who will then either hold on to it or transfer it on to the seller. Why is there cash involved? I don't get it.
Great, I have no idea.
So how it works with our home purchases generally at our office is, so the seller and the seller's agent, we often work with the buyer side. So, and then the buyer, our client, and us will come to our office, or sometimes the seller's agent office, right? If it's sometimes a big real estate agency or whatnot, we'll go to their office, but it doesn't matter. We all come together, and that's where we make sure everyone, we read through all the contract information, everyone agrees, and all the hunko and stamping is done, and we hand over the cash, and the seller will give us a receipt that their agent has prepared for the deposit. Okay, and then the contract is all stamped and everything is agreed.
No, I know why you do it that way, because you're all in the same city. With us, it's always like, if it's in Fukuoka, we might do it like we might all get together here, or sometimes like some particular agency will insist on coming in from Tokyo for the meeting itself. But most cases, it's all done via remote cities, and one party signs, they post it, the other party signs, they deposit. It's all. Yeah,
maybe it does make sense when it's an investment property that no one needs to see. It's more of this asset is like a financial tool. So yeah, they may not be in the same city. For us, it's usually family home. So I'm sure there is a way to do it if the person's not in the same city or cannot attend. Yeah. Then yes, we can. I'm sure we could arrange it. But in general, that's what happens. But then when it comes to the actual purchase day, right? Because again, you've only put, say, 4 million yen, 5 million yen of deposit of cash down. Then on contract day, that's when everyone will get together either at our office or at the bank. Okay. But it's quite common with the mega banks. We'll go to the branch, and let's say it's $1 million property, it's 100 million yen. 100 million yen will actually the bank will put 100 million yen into the seller's account. Sorry, into the buyer's account. And we prepare a list of all the transfers and says, okay, the buyer needs to transfer to the seller, 95 million yen. It's actually a 100 million yen property, but they've already paid 5 million. They only need to transfer 95 million yen. And they need to transfer 3 million yen to the agent as an agency fee. They need to transfer, 100,000 yen for the earthquake and fire insurance. And that happens on the day. So when everyone gets together, the scrivener looks and checks the title is okay, all that information is correct, and they've got the title, they've checked the IDs, and then the scrivener gives the okay to the bank and says, yes, all the documents are in order, you can transfer the money. The seller will be there and he'll check online on his bank account, or he may make a phone call. When the money has been received into his account, he'll say, yes, it's okay. He hands over a receipt for the rest of the house, all the stamping gets done, and the scrivener will have the documentation and say, yes, everything's approved. And the scrivener will go to the Ministry of Affairs and do the actual title transfer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you get the keys on that day. But that's how it happens. So there is no escrow service for that major amount, but the scrivener is the one who gives the authorization to the bank that all the documents are in order, everything is ready. And the scrivener has done some pre-work communication with the seller, communication with the seller's bank, whichever has the lien on the bank that has to be removed, and with the buyer's bank.
And the scriveners are legally licensed and monitored up the wazoo. So there's a very small chance that they're going to be up to any monkey business.
Yeah. And their fee is, I think, maybe about 300,000 yen. it's included in the title registration fee. So it's called a Torquay here. So title registration fee for properties, we should have like maybe like anywhere from 500,000 yen to 1,000,000 yen for the registration taxes and fees, plus the scrivener's service fee. That's the kind of price we look at. And some people say, oh, we can do it ourselves. We can, because technically you can do the scrivener job yourself as an individual.
Technically, you don't need an agent too.
As a way to save money, but we've never seen that. And also because who's going to take responsibility if there's an error? And the bank won't accept it. The bank won't accept an individual trying to save 200,000 yen. But what if you make a mistake? Your job is to put the bank's lien, the mortgage, on the title. So they want to make sure a professional does it. So they likely won't accept the individual to it.
Yeah, the documentation element of the whole process is, I mean, that's the part that is just so rife. Like, yes, Neil, you're correct. You technically, you're gonna give it the old college try. And you might have as much luck like translating ancient cuneiform texts or something like that. Like technically you can do it. You're going to fail somewhere.
It's still being done, I think, especially in your kind of areas, Matt. It's still being done in the countryside where, some farmer is selling his land to another farmer kind of thing. They just both go to the Legal Affairs Bureau and stamp some documents and stuff.
Well, that does happen. That's something that we actively try to, at very least, disencourage. It's so part of like that, actually properties that have that in their history will end up being even more expensive services wise, because with our Shiho Shoshi, that's kind of, it's not a shady transaction, but it's like a community transaction, right? Yeah. And for our clients, I mean, we again, these are Akia, they're kind of notorious for having something wrong with them, but it's not always very well defined. And so
the border's right over there, can't you see it?
Precisely, right? And we've done this before, right? Where we go with our Shiho Shoshi to the municipal offices, tracking down all of the registered documentation and also turning up what isn't registered. It's not that if there isn't information about it, then it's no go. It's merely we need to know what information exists and what does not, such that our client can make an informed decision. And these farmer to farmer transactions, a lot of the time they just don't have as much documentation, which means more work for us, which means that the client then has to pay higher fees.
If there is an issue with title, it significantly reduces the value of the property. The property that becomes, like in Tokyo at least, so much more unattractive when there's a discrepancy between the title and the property itself.
Yeah.
And I just see if people start doing it themselves, even if they can, the bank, like if it's a cash purchase and there's no bank demanding that it gets done, if something is overlooked, even though, technically great, you're the owner, whatever, when you go to sell it or just say a few transactions down the line, someone's going to be like, I just imagine in a decade or two's time, even now you probably come across it. Oh, this transaction done by, the great grandparents was just done between them. And so this information is missing on the registration.
Yeah.
And that's going to impact the value and the resaleability now.
You're totally correct. And it sucks for sellers. It's really great for our buyers, though, because if you do the proper due diligence and you do uncover discrepancies, guess what? You can start negotiating significant price reductions. I'm talking like 20 to 50%.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The
and so spending cash to do like the hardcore CSI detective work.
And it's funny because this is Japan, right? Like it's not like some third world country where suddenly someone's going to show up and that's my grandfather's property or it belongs to the chief of police. You're not allowed. You sold me the Brooklyn Bridge. Like it's not going to happen here. The most that's going to happen is you're going to end up doing, like you're saying, a lot of detective work and reproducing documents and bringing out the people to remeasure the borderline or whatever it is. Like it's not going to be anything that's going to be making suddenly the property is not yours anymore. But still, people avoid that like the plague, right?
Well, but from a buyer's point of view as well, at least for Akia, you'd be surprised at how many people, it might have just something to do with like, hey, it's cheap, I don't care. But just like run into and basically sight unseen and just sign and purchase the damn thing without realizing, like, for example, out in Saitama, there was a property that was actually in, what do you call it, like a historic preservation area. which meant like considerable, like you can't build above 2 stories, and there's color schemes that you have to abide by.
That I would want to know. We see that.
Yeah, and this wasn't listed.
Yeah.
Right. We discovered this by going to the municipal office on behalf of the client, right? And ended up knocking, I think it was 150,000 US off the price because like, it's a really nice place, but you didn't tell us about this. And that significantly reduces the stuff that I can do on it.
As far as I'm aware, the realtors are obliged by law to tell you about any of these sort of constraints or limitations or whatnot, no? I believe you're correct, but in practice, the experience that we've had is kind of along the lines of if you know the question to ask that begs the response of what you were just saying, then yes. But if you're not actively like pursuing the information, it might just go unsaid. Sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's not like lying, but
yeah, I'm not sure with Akia and how the Akia banks work and whatnot, but yeah, with what Ziv was saying, with a common transaction, there's the contract, the bye-bye keyakusho, so contract of sale, which details the terms and conditions of the sale transaction, and that's what I mean, like the penalty fees if you want to cancel, etc. And then there's this item called the Juyo Jiko Setsumeisho, the item of important matters, and that's the one that the licensed agent puts together, and they have to read it and explain it to the buyer and to the seller. So that's a licensed agent's job. And in that item of important matters, that's what describes the information about the property, including zoning and any restrictions, etc., that exist. However, so that's what we do. So and when we read that to the client, we explain it. And in Tokyo, most of the properties we do, like in general, like, regular, like Shibuya-ku, Setsugai-ku, etc. So they don't have the unusual zoning that you can get sort of in Aka, like these, historical preserved areas.
Yeah.
But the thing is, even if that is mentioned even if that is written in the documents, for example, like, again, if it's an Akia transaction, I don't know how that actually works. But if it's a typical sale, the seller doesn't have to explicitly tell it, but in the documentation, mind you, it's quite a detailed document. It will say, "Oh, this house is in this zoning for in Chiba-ken under this historical," and there'll be a bunch of checkboxes. It's got this, and zoning caveats on it, and they'll read it. So it's actually written there, but the buyer may not be aware that this is it. And that's what I think, to your point. If you don't know what question to ask, what does this mean? Well, hold on, what does this restriction even involve? It's something that can be missed, right? And that's what some due diligence in asking the right questions is. Hold on, these are the regulations. What does that actually mean to me? In Tokyo, we're like, well, any property in Tokyo is covered by this ordinance or by this, thing. So we don't come across that stuff as much, and we can explain it to the client. But I can definitely imagine, like, that's why I think I tell people, pay for the service and get it, when you buy these other properties.
And some, we frequently say, well, hey, if you like burning cash on very risky pursuits, then all right, let's run with it. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of these properties, and it's not malicious, right? And frequently, like, becoming an Akia is really kind of a scarlet letter, such that once that process has like been completed and you are now Akia, like, you better believe documentation is not going to be bothered with very much. And so it's just kind of a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And so especially with newer properties, as you would expect, generally they're not, they're pretty much up to snuff. Like they're good. And honestly, usually their owners are still somewhere around. It's just like, it's too rural or something like that. But the older a property gets, it just kind of accelerates exponentially the older, it being kind of the erasure of proper documentation. So you do have to be careful about it. And in fact, sometimes, often enough, we aren't able to locate, like frequent, like the Toki, or when, like, construction date specifically is one that comes
the
up.
Land title.
Yeah. We know when it's been registered, right? But so far as the initial, like actual construction and title and owner of,
Lost
like,
in time.
yeah, like legit, and which is from one angle very, very interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like we've sold Meiji era properties, and so we know they're at least like 130 years old, but we don't know anything more than that, just because, like you said, it's actually been lost in time.
There were no documents.
Yeah, they didn't have
Again,
something.
Yeah.
if I'm in Tokyo, if I go through a listing, we've got client searching and we're looking for properties, in this price range, and we see one, if I see one pop up, and always in the flyer, and it'll have some information, and if it says like the year built, like Fume, like unknown, you built, I won't even send that to the client. I mean, like there's no scenario where we're going ahead with a property that have documentation about the year built on the title. Yeah, like that's we're not working on that at all. Like the bank won't finance it. Like there's a thing called the Kakunin Zumisho.
Yeah.
And so when you apply for the plan and permits, and it's like the Kakunin Shinsei Sho. So that's a permit application, and that includes all the floor plans and detailed drawings of, like, the fireproofing and all that sort of stuff. And then there's like the initial, mid, and final inspection from the city hall during building. And it was pretty common for properties like, 15 and 20 years ago and before to not have the final inspection done. For whatever reason, but sometimes it could also mean that the person, like after it was signed off and they were building, maybe they extended a bit. They did a little bit extra, or one of the corners of the house that's meant to be a bit close, they opened it up a bit to get an extra 2 or 3 square meters, something like that. It can be something significant, it can be something quite small. But if it just doesn't have that document, right, the final inspection, the Kakunin Zumisho, sometimes the banks won't give financing on it. And although it's not a major issue and the house seems fine, the bank's like, yeah, no, we don't want to deal with it. So when financing becomes hard, the price becomes significantly less. Yeah. It may be a good deal, but you're not getting a 80 million yen property for 60 million yen. That property is always going to be a 60 million yen property. You can't resell it the next day. Yeah. So, it's interesting there. But title stuff for the big properties in Tokyo, especially when banks are involved, bank financing is involved, has to be really clear. Nothing sort of unusual.
And in that sense, I'm very jealous.
I guess the takeaway of today's chat is get a bloody buyer's agent.
Yeah.
It's not just that, it's also, I think today's chat, the theme is really, showing the benefit of getting people to do their part of the job rather than try to be all the things, like the paralegal does the paralegal work, the buyer's agent does does that work. I mean, and even it sort of reflects in my business in that when you're getting the minpaku registrations, I could technically do that myself. I don't want to, because my time is more valuable than that. When there are people that I can pay and they can get that done, because it's not just dotting those I's and crossing the T's. It's the fact that they've got to go and deal with the local government officers, and they have relationships with those people, and they can make sure that they know that Joe Bloggs, who works in this particular department, he's a real fuss nut for this particular this particular thing. So they know that exactly, right? I mean, it's even with the minpaku stuff, it's like there are certain hokenjos which are easier to deal with than others. So the scrivener, the person who does those documentations, they know that, and they know what is the particular bugbear of that
any of our respective areas of expertise. Like I wouldn't even dream of trying to lease a property out to short-term stayers or Airbnbers without someone like you, Tracy. Like just the thought of dealing with the advertising and the billing and the cleaning and the check-ins and checkouts, it's inconceivable for me.
Yeah, I mean that's why people pay me, because I can do that really well, because I've got I know how to do it. I've got all the assets at my fingertips, and it's like you could do it, but it's like writing with your left hand. Like,
Exactly.
if you can do it, but why?
That's what it boils down to, right? It's basically peace of mind, right? Like, here's all these crazy things, and I'm gonna be really stressed out about it for like years, but ultimately I'm gonna get it done. Or that was easy, and I'm already making a profit on it, and like, okay.
I think Tracy has to drop off in a minute, so we might call it a day.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. So thanks for your time.
Yeah, it's a good theme for today. Like, today has really been all about, the benefit of actually working with a buyer's agent, working with a good real estate agent, working with, a broker, working
That's why
with
they call us real estate professionals.
Exactly. And that it's not the cost, it's the value that we bring to the customer. And that's what you're paying for. You're paying for the value that we're bringing to you. And also those scriveners, they bring a value, and that's what you pay them for. Oh my God. Yeah. Dip them in gold. Absolutely.
They're usually quite slim and small, so they're not too heavy anyway. But they're just on that. Yeah, and usually it's actually, you'll be in a better financial position by using a professional. Like someone like Matt, like, you pay for the service, but you're going to save more than that in the not having the extra maintenance cost or these other secret, like, whatever other issues sort of arise. So like, when we do the home loan mortgage and stuff, the client can do the financing themselves, but I'm quite confident that we can probably get you a better deal or more money. Like, you can get 80% financing or get interest rate 1.8%, 1.9%. What if we get you 100% financing and 0.7%? Like, we've just gotten you a better overall deal financially. It's going to be, it's all part of the service. So, I think good professional services. Like Tracy as well, I'm very confident that a minpaku, like doing it yourself versus getting a professional to do it, even the professional service fee that they take out of it, they're getting overall a higher nightly rate.
Oh, hell.
And a better client, that their service fee taken out of it is still better than what you could have done yourself.
Not to mention the occupancy rates that you'd get working with a professional who knows how to advertise and place those people, right?
Mm-hmm. Precisely.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Good place to start. Let's. I'll send you these recordings. So we'll put them up online soon. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. That little stop in the middle there had me a bit worried, but we'll see how we go.
It should be fine. You just put them two together.
All right.
We say don't forget to like and subscribe. Do we do that?
Like and subscribe.
I'm new to this.
It'll be in the show notes.
I don't think that actually does anything. I don't to do that.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Talk to you later.
Have a great day. Bye, everyone. Bye.
All right. Good fun, as always. And a huge thank you, as always, to Tracy, Matt, and Emil. Each of them experts in their own right, and always heaps of fun to talk to. And again, quick reminder, December 10 to 12, Friday through to Sunday at the Hotel Montan in Hakata, Fukuoka. At the moment, the event is open to guests of the hotel only, so you do have to book the entire experience. The hotel hasn't approved walk-ins just yet, so we can't sell tickets to the event itself unless you're actually staying at the hotel for the weekend, but we will let you know if and when that changes. But if you're not from Fukuoka, that's really a no-brainer. Come and join us as we talk business, mingle, network, eat, drink, and play a shitload of really awesome games. Now, before we go, we're also, as always, going to tell you and also link to our other sponsor's website. That's Hiroshi Shimizu, immigration lawyer and administrative scrivener. If you're thinking about moving here on a more permanent basis, or you're already in Japan on some sort of a temporary visa and you want to switch to a longer term or permanent one, or if you're considering setting up a local company or a branch office of a foreign company and you've got any sort of business or visa related inquiries, or even if you just want to find out what your options are on any of these topics, feel free to contact Hiroshi Shimizu. You can find him at japanimmigrationexperts.com, and he can help you set up a company, apply for any kind of visa, or just provide you with the best advice and extremely affordable consultation related to these topics. And he's already done that for many of our listeners. So feel free to reach out to him. Again, that's japanimmigrationexperts.com, and you'll be well on your way. And that's it from us for today, folks. Hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Japan Real Estate Podcast. Do share it with your networks, and please let us know what you think. So leave us a short rating or review on the iTunes Store, on Spotify, or just drop us a line in the comment section of wherever you might have found this episode. We love hearing from you. Hope to have you with us again next time, and until then, have a great day or night ahead. Yoroshiku.